1 second.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the Office of Diversity and Inclusion has developed this presentation on trauma-informed practice. The really exciting part is the person who really developed it was our fall intern, Tashana Joseph, who I think is traveling this week. So we asked her to develop it. We gave her some resources. She did a really great job. And what she developed for us was a presentation that we can offer asynchronously. So there's a spoken component where she's kind of expanding on the slides. I will be heard. So I wanted to say that because I'm going to share it in that format. I'll pause it periodically. There are a couple of slides where I do want to add a little more information. And if we're lucky and I'm quick, we'll have a little time to chat afterward. Because the truth is, you know, this is about practice, but to implement practice, we really need to think about what resources we already have here on campus. And there are a few that I know I want to include, but you folks might even have something to share for that conversation. So I just wanted to share that before I got started. So if it seems a little weird that it's a voice that's not mine, it is the soothing voice of Tashana Joseph. So I think you'll enjoy it anyway. And I'm going to put it in present mode and then share screen. Oh, except I have to, hang on. I have to pause.
Welcome to Being Trauma-Informed for Post-Secondary Education.
Oh, it won't let me
presented
pause.
by the...
Stop, Tashana. I'll share first and then I'll do it. Sorry for my mechanical. What do you need, honey? Do you need something?
Are you muted?
No.
Never mind.
Okay. Working from home. Grace, where's Max? So I'm going to share screen and then I'll start the presentation. Sorry for the little snafu. Don't judge if you see my, all my files, don't judge. Okay. Here's a little presentation. Did I do something to it? Here we go.
Welcome to Being Trauma. What's ahead? Throughout this presentation, you will find slides. What is trauma?
Why is that happening?
Different types of trauma. Prevalence. By the time individuals reach
Sorry
college,
for the technical difficulties in our first run. Thank you for being a
lifetime traumatic
guinea
event
pig.
Exposure.
I'm pausing the share. And it didn't do that when I did it before. I'm going to stop the share for a second. I'm sorry, folks. I know we only have 20 minutes. Hang on one second. Let me just get it back again.
It sounded like that the slides were set on auto advance rather than waiting to get to the end of the
Yeah,
audio.
so I'm going to reopen it and I'll make that not be happening. John, I don't even know how to make it do auto advance.
I haven't done that in ages. The last time I did it was with a slideshow that we wanted to cycle through at a virtual display at a booth. But that's what it looked like. It looked like it was just
Yeah.
waiting like 5 seconds or whatever and going to the next slide.
Yeah.
Is it PowerPoint or Google
It's a
Slides?
Google slide. It's a Google slide. And I'm kind of flipping through. Slide, duplicate, delete, skip, change.
What if you just do the presentation without and just turn the voice
I guess, yeah. Except I can't figure out how to show the whole screen and look at the speaker notes without. I'm going to try one more time, and then I'll just share the presentation with you.
Annika, when you push present and the screen comes up, it'll say there's a little settings gear in the bottom left corner.
Mm-hmm.
It says auto advance, and that's where you can select how fast it's going through each slide or if you don't want it.
Thank you, Grace. It takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
If it's in the present mode, and then you go to the
Welcome
left
to
hand.
being trauma-informed for post-secondary education.
first of all, I won't let me
Presented
pause that.
by the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at
Auto
SUNY
advance.
Oswego.
And look for the setting gear.
So it's giving me the auto advance, and what I think I can do is just expand the auto advance. It doesn't give me the option of turning it off.
Mm-hmm.
But if I make it a long auto advance, I can probably advance it myself, right?
Yes.
Right.
So I'm going to say every minute. Okay. Thank you for. Now I'll share again. That only took 7 minutes. It's not terrible. It's not great. Where'd you go? Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. Share. And don't judge all those files. And thank you for saving the day. And here we go.
Welcome to being trauma-informed for post-secondary education. Presented by the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at SUNY Oswego. What's ahead? Throughout this presentation, you will find slides on what is trauma, the different type of diverse learners that are at elevated risk of trauma, ways to aid in development, teaching through a trauma lens, and trauma-informed practices. What is trauma? Trauma is the response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope. It can cause a sense of hopelessness, diminishes an individual's sense of self, and their ability to feel full range of emotions and experiences. Many people have experienced multiple traumas throughout their lifetime. Trauma can either be acute or chronic. Some people who experience some degree of emotional distress that continues or deepens over time can develop post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. One thing to note about trauma is that trauma does not discriminate. Anybody throughout their lifetime can experience trauma. Different types of trauma. Trauma is not just one thing, but it comes in multiple forms. So some examples of different types of trauma is physical or sexual abuse, abandonment, neglect, or betrayal of trust from a primary caregiver, death or loss of a loved one, domestic violence, poverty and chronically chaotic housing and financial resources, bias-related trauma, bullying, life-threatening health situations and or painful medical procedure, witnessing or experiencing community violence, which can include shootings, stabbings, or robberies, witnessing police activities such as police brutality, or having a family member incarcerated, military combat, and historical trauma. One thing to note about this list is that some people may experience just one thing, while others might experience various types of trauma.
So one thing that we talked about in our office related to this slide is just that you see when you look at this how prevalent trauma experiences are. I know anyone looking at this is in their head ticking off, wait, that one. You know, everybody experiences trauma, and how people respond is going to be really unpredictable from the outside.
Prevalence. By the time individuals reach college, 66 to 85% of youth report lifetime traumatic event exposure, with many reporting multiple exposures. Veterans. Many veteran students live with post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. PTSD affects cognitive functioning, such as memory and the ability to switch quickly between tasks. It can be difficult for veterans while transitioning from a highly structured military environment, renegotiating new identities as veterans, mixing in with traditional age college students, and often coping with physical disabilities. Griffin and Gelbert suggest an approach grounded in the theory of the 4 S's to help foster an environment suitable to veterans. This involves situation, self, support, and strategy. Situation involves minimizing stressors that can worsen transitional challenges for veterans, such as making sure schedules and policies are clearly outlined and explained. Self involves promoting internal resources through counseling and assistance. Support focuses on the institutional structures colleges can put in place to ease transitions, such as having a dedicated veterans office on campus. Strategy involves helping veterans navigate difficult response options during times of transition by helping them devise specific stress management strategies.
So you're going to let me pause? You know,
Refugee,
go back.
racial ethnic affinity.
But I just want to say for a moment, as we go through the slides of different identity groups and the strategies to help support them, one of the things I think about as a teacher is how relevant these strategies actually are to all of us. You know, having a clear understanding of expectations, having support, helping people develop their internal resources. So I think when we're talking about working with, you know, English as a second language student or students with learning issues, we talk about strategies to support those students. The reality is there are great strategies for all of our students. And I think we're going to hear these strategies for different populations, but developing this toolkit is really going to help us do what we do better with everybody we work with. Ooh, oh.
Refugee.
Why is that happening again?
Refugee, current and past foster care students. Current and former foster youth often face challenges.
All right. So clearly there are some glitches. Thank you, guinea pigs. Here.
LGBTQIA+. Many LGBTQIA+ students have been exposed to anti-LGBTQIA+ attitudes and behaviors throughout their lives, ranging from covert discrimination to overt acts of violence. These experiences can contribute to a traumatic response, also known as PTSD. Teachers and counselors may be particularly important sources of help for LGBTQIA+ students. College campus should ensure that educators and mental health providers receive training and supervision from those experienced in working with the LGBTQIA+ community. Educators and student support staff members should provide an atmosphere of openness, inclusion, and affirmation with students of all genders and sexual orientation.
So again, best practice for all. I think it's worth mentioning here that safe zone training is available. I actually was talking to Shelley Sloan. I think we're going to go through training as an office in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. She's up for any time. So if we're listening to the what, and if you're wondering about the how, regarding veterans, you know, there's a veterans club on campus. There are a few folks that work with veterans out of extended learning. For all of these groups and for our own education, we have our Counseling Services Center. So we definitely have resources to support us in thinking about trauma-sensitive practice.
Refugee, current and past foster care students. Current and former foster youth often face challenges with access to and readiness for higher education and the workforce. Refugee students are more susceptible to depression, often negotiating difficult, precarious familial and financial circumstances. There are 5 ways post-secondary education institutions can help foster and refugee youth succeed. The first thing we can do is create safe spaces and have supportive staff. Students who may have few positive adult connections benefit from institutional support in navigating post-secondary education. Having a designated space on campus with a foster/refugee youth coordinator can help students connect with the supportive adult as well as other foster/refugee students and build a sense of community. Counseling and the opportunity to heal. Counseling services that specifically address trauma can help foster and refugee more fully access educational opportunities on campus. Support for academic success. Although not all foster/refugee students struggle academically, many need support to face academic rigors of higher education. This can take the form of tutoring services, summer bridge programs, and study skills workshops. Financial help for the journey. Youth may not always have the resources or guidance to take full advantage of the financial aid or benefits available to them. And lastly, the need for support through transitions. Transitional periods such as summer and winter breaks can create significant financial and emotional challenges for refugee/foster students. They also benefit from support with navigating the transition out of college.
So, having worked, my background is teaching ESL, ENL in New York State. I work a lot with students from Syracuse. So on the refugee front, I often know my students' backgrounds when they come to campus. There aren't that many, though. I get 8 from 20 Syracuse students every year. And the truth is, refugee students or students who've been in the foster system have to self-identify. We don't have a way to flag them and send services their way. And we don't have any, it's not like they'll look up an office that's an intentional space for services for them, but we have a lot of incidental great resources on campus that speak to a lot of these needs. And even, EOP, I know you have your summer program and you also meet with students before they come to campus. Things like that, or spaces like that, are where you can start to build relationships to offer support based on your understanding of students' identities. I would also add on the refugee front for our campus, at least locally, Sandy Barganier is such an amazing self-made resource. She's kind of made it her side project to know refugees from Syracuse and work with their families in that community and continue to follow up with them and know what they're doing and what they're needing when they come to our campus. So we can talk more about that if there are questions.
Racial ethnic affinity groups. Understanding the mental health and psychological experiences of racial ethnic individuals and communities involves understanding historical trauma. Historical trauma can be defined as interpersonal losses passed down within and across generations. Some things we can do to practice trauma sensitivity for these racial ethnic affinity groups is practice cultural humility. This practice involves constantly evaluating your own knowledge and skills. So this is acknowledging power imbalances and committing to respectful, humble, and sincere collaboration. Prepare to play multiple roles and be patient and flexible. Creative adaptation may require rescheduling, outreach,
crisis intervention skills, compassion, and sensitivity. Recognize that ongoing community trauma and loss will impact your work. Trauma-informed approach acknowledges the widespread impact of trauma. One of the things we've talked about on our campus and become more aware of is that our students do experience bias incidents that are traumatizing outside of our community and inside of our community. As an office, we're really contemplating and working on figuring out how to create a culture of reporting around bias and understanding that the obstacles to that are the same obstacles, because I also work in Title IX, that we experience in Title IX: shame, fear of retaliation, fear that nothing will be done. We have spaces, we have affinity-based counseling groups through the counseling center. We have our office as a resource, but I think we also really need to work on students feeling that they have voice and understand the process for sharing incidents when they take place, and to feel supported in that process.
Trauma in post-secondary learners, what you might see. So some things that you might see in post-secondary learners that have been affected by trauma is difficulty focusing, attending, retaining, and recalling. Some students tend to shut down. There is a tendency to miss a lot of classes, challenges with emotional regulation, fear of taking risks, anxiety about deadlines, exams, group work, or public speaking, anger, helplessness, or dissociation when stressed, withdrawal and isolation, and involvement in unhealthy relationships.
So, and even, in my Title IX work, doing investigations and interviewing students, sharing things that have happened to them or things that they've been accused of, you definitely see these markers playing out. You know, things suddenly are coming to you in funny order, or something really big is omitted and then comes back up later, needing time to tell the story. And you see this ripple effect in their life, in their academic life, and in their social lives, in their personal relationships. So definitely things to look for.
Principles and practices.
No. All right. So we can, I don't know why that's happening, but Norm, thank you for doing this with me, because I want to be able to send this out in the world. So I have to figure out why it's not working properly. But normalize and validate their feelings and experiences, assist them in understanding the past and its emotional impact. You know, I think folks can be bopping along because what you live in your life is your life. So it seems normal, and not see the connection between obstacles that you're experiencing and events that have happened in the past. Empowering trauma-affected individuals to better manage their current lives. Sometimes the trauma is just chaos. So just figuring out how to manage and schedule and deal with time and deadlines. Connect students to the school community. I went to a really interesting presentation at the SUNY Diversity Conference last year. That what really struck me in this presentation was they were talking about how many students take advantage of counseling resources and how many students are involved with clubs and organizations. And students are so much more likely to connect with clubs and organizations. So I think that's such a great pathway for students to be helping to connect with the community. So something we always need to be supporting students in and encouraging them to do. Provide students with opportunities to practice their skills, embrace teamwork and shared leadership, anticipate and adapt to changing needs of students in the community. I think when we're talking about teamwork and shared leadership, I think if you can kind of break down hierarchies and empower people to feel like they have agency in their setting and in their situations, and sometimes you might really have to structure and scaffold that, but that's always going to help heal and help people manage.
Here are some de-escalation.
Okay, I hope the last one works because it's a mindfulness exercise, but so you want to be ready to de-escalate. You know, you might be having a difficult conversation with somebody and it triggers them and suddenly things feel out of control, or a behavior in the classroom might be something that you don't anticipate in higher ed and you don't know how to navigate it and manage it. So you want to look for signs and be careful not to mirror the other person's behaviors. And I know that as a parent, there are times where I'm getting into it with one of my kids, and I have to dial back and not be angry with them or not be responding in the way that not approach them the way they're approaching me. I need to be calm and be supportive, and that's the only way to kind of break the moment. And I guess my kids in that moment are mirroring trauma. But like I said, these practices, they scale out, they scale up. Practice empathy and give the other person space. You know, really just take a moment, say, how are you feeling? This is what I'm seeing. How are you feeling? And kind of be in that feeling with them, understand what's going on. Listen to the person, acknowledge their feelings, invite them to take a non-punitive cool down time. And I think you want to think about how you offer that, because you don't want to be patronizing. You know, do you need a timeout? You know, but just, do you need time? You know, do you need space? What is going to help you right now? Suggest simple tasks to engage the cortex. You know, that might even be, let's get a drink of water. You know, let's just do something that's going to break the moment. There are more intentional things that you can teach people if you know that they're in a more constant state of crisis, you know, things like counting and breathing techniques. And you might, if something is beyond what you can do, you might just need to ask someone for help.
Mindfulness.
I hope this one works. No. So I don't know how much experience the group has with mindfulness or mindful practice. It's funny because I at one point was doing professional development through School of Ed with Barb Beyerbeck, with teachers in Syracuse around mindfulness. And I told one of my childhood friends and he chuckled, "You?" Because I'm known to be chatty and active and impulsive, but I think especially me, like I think I really came largely through that experience just to recognize the value of taking a moment, learning to sit still and breathe as a way to take a moment very intentionally. So it can help manage emotions, enhance their relational functioning. You know, if somebody's agitated in a moment and you're a part of that agitation, that's going to affect your relationship with them and how they're seeing you. But if they can get to a calm state, then that's going to change the dynamics of your relationship. And to having that kind of being able to be mindful and create space is going to help folks have compassion and empathy for themselves and for others. So I'm not, because we're short on time, going to lead us in a meditation, but really what I love about Tashana's presentation meditation in this is it's as simple as feel your feet connect to the ground, feel your spine, feel your head connecting with the ceiling or the sky, and think about your breath and feel your breath going in and feel your breath going out. And, you know, I think there was a time where I felt very self-conscious about leading that, saying those words, like it's hippy dippy, it's weird. But the benefits so quickly illustrate that it's not, that it's just a quick instruction on how we're gonna be calm in the moment. I don't know if she reads this. This quote, "We have learned trauma is not just an event that took place sometime in the past. It is also the imprint left by the experience on mind, brain, and body. This imprint has ongoing consequences for how the human organism manages to survive in the present. Trauma results in a fundamental reorganization of the way mind and brain manage perceptions. It changes not only how we think and what we think about, but also our very capacity to think." And this is from Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, which I highly recommend. It's a great book. It's a great view into trauma, the prevalence of trauma, and ways to work with people who've experienced trauma. I'm going to stop the share and ask, does anyone have any questions? I know we're at 3:28, so we're 8 minutes over time. I don't think we had until 3:30.
If you don't mind, Annika, I'm going to put an author in the chat too, Resma, who does healing racialized trauma, and he has videos and books out there that are really phenomenal. So.
Oh, great. Thank you, Grace. Yeah, if anyone else has resources they'd like to share, we'd love to have them. So I'm also curious, we really want to be, so I have to go back and figure out what was happening with the audio. Do any of you, I know you're all connected with different groups on campus, do you see a value with having just an asynchronous quick overview of trauma, even as a way to begin conversations and work around trauma? Any thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great for students, but also for faculty and staff on campus to get this presentation directly, maybe even at, staff meetings, but definitely for student organizations as well would be great.
That's great. Yeah, and I think even as there are such distinct affinity groups in the presentation, I think it's also like a quick overview, and then you might want to be talking about specific groups or specific kinds of trauma that people have experienced. But that's it. That's our presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to our office, and we'll put something together. Or if anyone wants us to do something like this and build on it, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
John, I don't know how this would be said. We just hop off. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, I'll stop the recording.